What's going on, good people? Welcome to the new episode of the Paul Rivera Podcast. I have a man that I won't even try to introduce. I'll just introduce him as my good friend, Josh Kroenke. Josh, what's good, brother? How are you?
I'm good, PR. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for making the time. I know you're super busy. Where do you find yourself?
Absolutely.
You're in LA?
I'm out in Los Angeles at the moment. Was in Denver most of the quarantine lockdown last spring, and then have been back out here as the American football season started back up.
Got it. So we're going to get into a bunch of things that you are doing at Kroenke Sports and Entertainment. But first, and I didn't prep you for this, but I think you know me well enough to know exactly where I'm going. You have one of the all-time most epic high school basketball stories that I love to tell at dinner parties. When you were in the gym, you remember the story I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Do you mind? Please kicking this show off?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was. It was actually the most fun I've had telling this story was, of course, telling it to him. And I was a rising senior in high school. I was a good player. I wasn't a great player by any means, but I was like a top 50 recruit, I think, in the country. And so I got invited to play on this traveling team that was going to go to Europe. And so we go to Columbus, Ohio. We go to the gym. And for those that don't know, I was a basketball player back in the day. And so anyway, we go to the gym and in Columbus, and we're playing and we're scrimmaging. And a couple guys on my team were really good players. There was one guy going to Kentucky, one guy going to UCLA, another guy going to Maryland, another guy going to North Carolina, Donald Little going to Cincinnati, I think. And so we're scrimmaging and it's going back and forth. And I think even there was even some pro coaches there, and the run was really good, and I was doing fine, but I got subbed out of the scrimmage, and I came over to the sideline, and there's a guy standing there, a local guy, and he's talking to another guy that had just walked into the gym, and at that age, and I think PR, this is where it kind of gets funny because like. At that age, when you're growing and you're going through your different growth spurts, and everybody matures at a different rate of speed throughout life. I mean, I think I actually grew until I was, 20, 21. I mean, it seemed that's what it seemed like it. But anyway, one of those 1 year in high school is like a lifetime. And so we're all the top rising seniors in the country, and we're out there scrimmaging. And the guy's like, yeah, he's pretty good. He's not bad. That kid going to UCLA is pretty good. But, man, I'm telling you, there's an 8th grader up in Akron that's better than all these dudes. And I remember sitting there.
And you hear this. You hear him say that.
Yeah, of course. And I was like, I turned and, like, it was like, the Nick Young meme where you're like, it was a meme moment where I was, like, looking at him with my head cocked sideways, not understanding what I just heard. And then, a couple years later, sure enough, I see on ESPN that a team from Akron's about to play on, and that was the first time I saw LeBron play. I didn't see him play live, but I saw him on ESPN, and it only took a few minutes, and I was like, "Yep, I bet as an 8th grader, I bet he was better than all of us."
That's amazing, man. I literally tell that story.
It was funny.
At any dinner party.
It was funny. It was Columbus, man. Ohio, and the Ohio boys, man. Yep. It's funny how life evolves, man.
Isn't it right? Full circle, right? So you go to school at Missouri, right? You hoop at Missouri?
Yeah, University of Missouri.
What's that experience like? You go to school, you hoop?
No, it was cool. I mean, I don't know where you were going to go with what you were going to say. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was an honor to play for my hometown state. I grew up in Missouri. I went away to prep school for a year, came back to go to college. Sorry if it looks like my hands are moving a lot. I have a puppy. She's sitting
my
right
guy.
here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've met her yet.
That's not.
This is a new girl.
Let me see her. What's up, Hattie?
Oh yeah, yeah. So Hattie's 8 months old. I got her in early April. Arnie's still sitting right here too, though. Don't worry.
Arnie's my guy.
Arnie's not far.
You know how me and Arnie do. Me and Arnie have partied in Aspen.
Come here. Yeah, Arnie can say hi too.
Arnie, what up, homie? There he is.
Say hi, buddy. Say hi.
Hey, me and Arnie's been in the club in Aspen before.
Yeah, man. Arnie goes everywhere. Arnie's a well-behaved man. He's a well-behaved man. Hattie not so much yet. She's trying to take a few notes from Big Brother.
She'll get there.
Anyway, where was I? Mizzou.
Yeah.
Is that where we were?
Yeah, you were saying you were hooping at Mizzou.
Yeah, hooping at Mizzou, and it was a great experience, honestly. I mean, I think we all have college teams that we cheer for growing up, and being from Missouri, that's the one that I cheered for, and it was an honor to play for them, and met a lot of great people. Then moved to New York City after that. Being a college basketball player, I couldn't do a lot from an internship standpoint, and so I interned with the NBA league office for a year, which was an amazing experience for what I do now. And then I got out of the sports industry altogether and worked in real estate finance for a couple of years in New York, and then moved to Denver in 2007 and been working for KSE ever since. Started off kind of doing different, odds and ends things. And my dad let me learn the ropes of the business in a lot of different ways from a lot of different people. And I love it. It's a lot of fun and getting to meet really cool people like yourself, my man.
My man. Let me ask you, Josh. So when you go to Mizzou, you're hooping, just your affinity for sport, passion for sport, business, and Kroenke is one of the most successful people in real estate and sport and all of that stuff. Do you know in college you want to be in the family business? You may not know at what point or how, but do you know then?
I wasn't really sure, to be frank. I had done, I've been around my dad's office some in Missouri. I knew the people that worked there, all wonderful people. But I tried to forge my own path as much as I could kind of going up. And that was kind of the outlet that being a basketball player gave me. In hindsight, was kind of being my own person and having my own identity. And so I was very keen on that, kind of coming out of Mizzou. But 3 years into living in New York, I talked to one of my best friends, Mike, who I think you met a bunch of times too.
Yep.
And he was I was kind of listing off all the reasons why I didn't think it was a good idea to work in the family business. And at the end of the conversation, he just kind of smiled and he was just like, "You're just trying to find, anything and everything." And he's like, I think it's a dumb move if you don't try it for a little while, because I think you'd be a natural. And so I moved to Denver in 2007 and then haven't looked back since. It's been a lot of fun. And as our business has expanded across, into London, out into Los Angeles now, it's been great. And like I said, I've met a lot of great people from a lot of different walks of life. And so I'm enjoying it immensely.
And let me ask you this. I've had the pleasure of meeting Stan. I know he's a no-nonsense guy, as amazing as he is. I know he wasn't gonna, there's no way, and we've never discussed this, your journey, but I know there's no way he's like, "Hey, son, come on in, here are the keys, run this thing." Like, what were early days of the family business? Like, I know Stan, like I said, he's a real guy, and he's gonna be like,
"Oh, yeah.
You're gonna be in this thing, you're gonna be in this thing."
Yeah, oh yeah. We still have many real days, trust me. No, I mean, I think, my father and my mother have always been very encouraging of me to be myself. No question is a dumb question. He definitely took that same approach, I think, initially. He did. The cool thing about my dad was he let me, what I guess I would say, float a little bit initially when I moved to Denver. He wanted to make sure that, I wasn't let's say full. He wasn't checking up on me too much, but he wanted to make sure he knew that I was getting some work done and people were using me and however they wanted to, whether it was making copies or running errands. But he let me move around, which was great because it let me go between marketing meetings, finance meetings, all the way down to basketball ops. And he let me hang out with the Nuggets more initially because, to be frank, that was where I grew up on. I knew basketball. And so if I was going to learn the sports business from the ground up, it made a lot of sense to do it on the basketball side. And now I can take a lot of those principles that I learned early on and apply those to the Avalanche, to Arsenal, to help out with the Rams here in Los Angeles now, the Colorado Rapids again back in Denver. We're working on some things. And so there's just a lot of different, it's all different, I guess, fruit, but it's all fruit to fruit. And you might be having apples, oranges, and watermelons, but there's a lot of different ways you can apply a lot of different things that you do across your team.
For sure. So I purposely didn't give you a proper introduction when I introduced you because you do so much. So saying you do this for the Nuggets or do this for that team would be an understatement. So what I want to do is I kind of want to like double back and mention a couple of clubs or teams and then have you talk about your role. So Let's start with a little club called Arsenal.
Oh, sorry. Hattie just jumped into my lap.
There you go. She'll get the swing of it.
Little club called Arsenal. Yeah, it definitely is not a little club. I can tell you that.
Some of the most loyal fans in the world, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Incredible support around the world from all different areas of the globe, really. It's amazing the stuff that you see online and the feedback that we get at the club from the different fan groups around the world. It's awesome.
And what's your role with the club on a day-to-day, let's say? Obviously, I know you have specific people that work on each club, but what's your on a day-to-day?
On a day-to-day with Arsenal, I mean, specifically, I'm a director on the board, and that's been for a long time now. And Arsenal is structured slightly different than we have our club structured here in the United States. But Arsenal has been a club that was publicly owned for its entire history up until just a few years ago when we bought the remaining share. It was several different shareholders, but it was one major shareholder. And we now, as KSE, own 100% of the club. And so I'm a director. My father is the owner. I report directly to him. And then we have several other board members, including Phil Harris, Tim Lewis, and myself, along with our new CEO. He's been there at the club for a long time, but he was just promoted to CEO. And we try to sift through anything and everything. And to be frank, the last 6 months or so, I mean, are we into month 6 now of this? Let's see, March, April, May, June, July. I mean, we're the last 6 months have been like drinking from a fire hose. It's kind of like it wasn't really a joke. I guess it was a statement that I would make to whoever was listening to me on the many Zoom calls that I was on throughout this process. But, I was like, how do you prepare for when the world stops? And I don't know that you fully can. And so you try to do your best. You try to kind of lean into the moment. That's been another slogan that I've done throughout this whole COVID thing, is that everybody's trying to lean in and figure out how we're all going to get through this, because the world has kind of just slowed down to almost not a complete halt, but a screeching halt to a slow roll. Let's just say that. And it's been an adventure for everybody. And we have our new manager we hired at the middle of last season, Mikel Arteta. It's hard for me to place timelines going as I think through this on a quick basis. So it's been an adventure. But at Arsenal, I mean, I deal with everything from really high level marketing and finance. Sorry, she keeps biting.
No, you're good. You're good. She's our co-host.
Yeah, at least the listeners know that they're getting the authentic experience with a puppy running at my feet. And then all the way from the business side all the way over to the sporting side, and really we have. Our motto is to kind of hire great people and to let them do their jobs and to help support them and provide the resources when possible. And that's no different from Arsenal to the LA Rams, to the Denver Nuggets, to the Colorado Avalanche. We try to put people in their roles, provide the resources. And, one of the things that I talk about, and we've talked about at Arsenal a lot, is a rolling 1, 3, and 5 year plan. And so you're always kind of tracking yourselves in relation to the goals that you've set as an organization while keeping an eye on different horizons. And I think that over at Arsenal in particular, we've really got a good group going on behind the scenes, led by Mikel Arteta and Edu Gaspar as our technical director. We've changed our model around, and we've got a great bunch of guys that are ready to get to work, and I know we're fired up for the season.
It's funny, speaking of being fired up, it's like it's easy to falsely think, like, because you're here in the States, that your focus is solely the Nuggets or solely the Avalanche or solely the Rams. What are you looking forward to with the club?
It sounds funny, but at the club, we went through a big transition period over the last few years. We had a legendary manager, Arsene Wenger, had been with the club for over 20 years. He left the club in 2018. We hired another man named Unai Emery. Thought I had a wonderful first season. It just unfortunately didn't work out. And so we've landed in a place where we hired a new head coach at the middle of last season. His name is Mikel Arteta. And in that process, and before that process, we also brought in a gentleman named Edu Gaspar, who is the technical director / what I guess in North America you'd refer to almost as a GM. Edu is a player at the club. So was Mikel a long time ago. Not a long time ago, to be honest, but Edu in the mid 2000s. Mikel only like 5-6 years ago. And they're both energetic young guys with a lot of ideas about football. And, you know, we talk about the 1, the 3, and the 5, and it's different trying to apply certain principles to English football, European football, as it is to apply them to our North American franchises, just because the rules are so different of how things kind of work with promotion, relegation, buying players instead of trading players. So it's all, like I said, it's all fruit to fruit, but it is different at times. And so I'm just really excited about the culture that those guys have created, and the personalities that we have going on behind the scenes, because, you know, to win a championship, it starts with a feeling. And, you know, LJ and I've talked about culture a lot. And championship culture and championship pedigree is something that you have to build over time. And it starts with a feeling and a trust in one another. And I think that we have that in spades over at Arsenal right now.
Love it. I wanna transition to the Avalanche, a team and franchise you're equally as excited about. Talk to me a little bit about your role day to day with the Avalanche.
You're going to hear kind of similar answers to some of this stuff, because I'm in constant contact with our GM, Joe Sakic, who's done a wonderful job building that squad, that team over the last several years. And, you know, as like I mentioned with the feeling with Mikel and Edu, with Joe and our head coach, Jared Bednar, you know, we've had that feeling for the last few years, and it started, you know, and we've had some high draft picks over the years. You know, it starts with a group of guys that, you know, probably they weren't succeeding at the time, because that's what leads you to have to unfortunately make changes. We made changes several years ago, started talking about the 1, the 3, and the 5. And when you can really have honest conversations and dialogue about where you are presently, where you think you'll be in 12 months, where you think you'll be in 36 months, and, you know, a 5-year horizon for sustainability, as long as everybody's on the same page and you're not shifting any goalposts as an organization, I think that's where teams can get themselves in trouble. Is, you know, they think they've got a good young team, and then all of a sudden they win a few more games, and they might think that they should have won previously. Does that lead them to make a trade where they throw some chips all in when they're not quite ready to go all in? And so that's why we talk about the 1, the 3, and the 5, is to constantly be on the same page about what we're all looking at from, you know, a head coaching perspective, from a GM perspective, and then all the way up to an ownership perspective. And so we do that on the hockey side, and I think we've done a great job with that. We've made the second round of the playoffs this year up in the bubble in Edmonton. That's the second year in a row we've been in the second round of the playoffs. And, you know, we took the lead in Game 7 with 3 minutes to go, and unfortunately we weren't able to eke out the win. And I know that our guys are going to have a taste in their mouths to use as motivation coming back for the next year, whenever that is.
Right. It's all fluid right now. It's all fluid.
Exactly. It's all fluid right now. Yeah.
Want to talk about the Rams, and we're remiss to talk about the Rams let's talk about the stadium first. Like, I know, like, that's labor of love, and what a process and what a journey that's been. Talk a little bit about, like, what that journey's been like for the stadium.
The stadium. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a multi-year process, as you well know. And for all the people out there, you know, it's SoFi Stadium here in LA. You know, the fields, the turf finally went in, I don't know, in late, you know, I guess want to say mid-August. And I went down there to kind of check it out. It was kind of the final piece they were putting in. And I walked out to the 50-yard line and looked around. That was my first time really grasping the scale of everything. Mm-hmm. But I called him and I said, you know, Dad, I said, you know, we sat down for these meetings, you know, years ago. I remember you telling the architects that I think that you thought that one of the biggest risks of the project was undershooting this and not doing it to the worthiness of Los Angeles, California. And I said, as I stand here on the 50-yard line, let me tell you, you did not undershoot this. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's state of the art in every way. The field, the open air sides, the clear roof that's on it still allows you to kind of feel as if you're almost in an outdoor venue, but you're able to host events that require roofs. And I think it's going to be a great place for a long time for a lot of people. And like I said, I just can't wait for people to be able to get out and see it safely, of course.
Of course. Josh, I've flown over it, like when I'm landing in LAX.
Yeah.
Is it in the ground? Like,
yeah,
am I seeing
it's
that
sunk,
correctly?
the seating bowl is sunk down just a little bit. Yeah. And so when you come in, you're actually coming in basically at club level. And so you'll come in and you'll come, so you come in and you'll come down. And I think and there's some other features that are hard to describe, but I think as people realize that it's an indoor venue that still feels like you're outdoors, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I watched Hard Knocks, which I love.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool to get a sneak peek into the stadium and just seeing the players, like, reactions, like they had phones out, like, have you seen that? Have you heard?
For us, that was cool for us to see too. And I know that meant a lot to my father because of all the work that he's put in, but two, those are the moments that, and especially right now in COVID, you don't really get to experience because unfortunately have to limit your contact with others. And knowing my dad and the joy that he gets out of being around all these teams that we're involved with is that he gets to be around the players and the coaches and the staff, and that he's not able to do that really right now very much. And so to see those reactions that were on Hard Knocks to reaction to the stadium, I know he thought that was pretty cool.
That's dope. And I assume you guys are equally, if not more, excited about the actual Rams team this season.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think, Sean's done an unbelievable job. Sean and our general manager, Les Snead, Kevin Demoff, and the rest of the bunch. After the season last year, I think, Sean and I went out, grabbed a couple of drinks, and kind of had a, season in review type sit down where we just kind of laugh and talk, and he can vent about anything that he thinks is good, vent about anything he thinks is bad. And my only words to him were just words of encouragement that says, don't, even though I forget what we finished, but, we were really just a couple of plays away, and our division is the toughest in football, in my opinion. We lost on a field goal, I think, in Seattle as time expired. We had, San Francisco at 3rd and 20 something. We let them get out of slip through our fingers. And so I was like, don't try and reinvent the wheel, and just believe in what you're doing and make some tweaks and come back stronger than ever. And I think that Sean and his staff have done an unbelievable job of just tweaking the roster a little bit. And they've got the belief of the players. And I think that, there's a collective belief, and there's an energetic young head coach. And so I think that's a pretty good combo.
I love it. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like I said, watching Hard Knocks was and getting that sneak peek of the team and what you guys are building.
Pretty wild though. It was cool for me to see them going through the COVID stuff because, I say I'm desensitized to moments around the teams and everything like that. But when we're going in and out of training camp and we're flying around and we're doing this, but it was cool for me to see the different protocols because I'm not able to go over there and to see how they were approaching it. And it was, I think the NFL, I mean, we're going to have some challenges just like everybody will, but I think, initially they've done a pretty good job.
No, for sure. Like I said, it was pretty cool to watch not only the team and the excitement around preparing for the season, but just the organization, seeing how you guys were preparing for the season and coach, and just all the protocols and things you were putting in place, and thinking safety and health first. It was pretty cool to get a sneak peek into that. I want to transition into this little team called the Denver Nuggets. We'll get into how the season ended and the insane run in a second. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, right? It's like, as a franchise, as an organization, you go into a season being realistic on what the priorities are. Hey, you know what? We can make a run to the chip. Hey, you know what? We're going to develop talent. Hey, you know what? We're going to do whatever we're going to do. What as much as you can share going into the season, what was the thought process? I know you felt really great about the roster, but what were you feeling going into the season about the team?
Going into the season, which season? The previous season or the bubble season?
Yeah, the previous regular when the world was normal season.
So one year ago right now.
Yes, it's insane.
So I think we were optimistic. Our guys, we made the second round of the playoffs in 2019. And it was after failure of the previous 2 years that we really kind of reached the playoffs, I guess, last year in 2019. And then we lost to the Blazers in 7 games. And but I think that the cool thing about those experiences is that the year prior, I mean, the groundwork of our run this year was actually laid several years ago. I think it was the first year that Russ averaged a triple-double, but we came within one or two games of making the playoffs that year. And then the following year, we lost in overtime at Minnesota, and they snuck into the 8th spot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you know, we talked, and we fell short of our goals those years, which was talking about the 1, 3, and the 5. We wanted to make the playoffs, but you come so close, and you're doing it with a, you know, mostly younger group as your, you know, main guys, you know, scoring all your points, grabbing all your rebounds, and playing big minutes. So you go through the analytics, you try to figure out where you can get better. And as I said to Coach Malone and Tim Connolly, our president of B-Ball Ops, after we lost to Minnesota a couple years ago, I said, I came into the locker room and everybody was so down. And, you know, I didn't want everybody to get too down. I was very, trust me, I was mad too. But down the stretch and going into overtime, you could start to see this Jamal Nicola thing developing. And we had a 20 or 21-year-old and a 23-year-old out there making plays that, you know, hey, someone might have got a shot blocked. They might have wound up missing, you know, a step back jumper, but they were making heady plays and they were making the right plays down the stretch. And so I told Coach Malone, I said, you know, guys, we should be encouraged. And I want to encourage you. Let's be bold. I believe in you guys. So let's believe in what we're seeing out there as well. And sure enough, you know, a year later, our guys make the playoffs and they get tested in 7 games against San Antonio, who, you know, as the best coach team in basketball, they're always tough to beat. And they snuck that out. They got that experience. Then they went and then they went and played the Portland Trail Blazers and lost in 7 games to them last year. And those experiences, they go a long, long way for the group. And so you had the guys come back. And, you know, I think that the break actually did us some good. I think it possibly hurt other teams. But for us, the COVID break, you know, I think everybody saw what Jamal did when they got to the bubble. That wasn't by accident. Jamal was working his butt off the whole time. Nikola, you know, we talk about Nikola Jokic, and you know, it's the overnight success story from, you know, Serbia that, you know, really has, you know, worked his tail off ever since he came in the door several years ago. And so these guys, they've been together. They've got the continuity that some of the things I talk about internally is, you know, I think continuity is a very underrated and powerful thing in pro sports. When you have a group of people that are together for a while that have a common goal and they can read and react to one another and get better, I think that the ceiling just keeps getting higher and higher. And so to kind of finally fast forward to this year, I think the bubble, the break did us a little bit of good. A couple guys came back stronger. One in particular I got to talk about is Michael Porter Jr.
Our guy, yes.
For people, like Paul texted me the night of the NBA draft when we drafted Michael Porter Jr. And I forget what you said that day, PR, but you were like, "Yo, how in the world did this dude get to 14?"
Yes.
And I don't even know what I sent back other than probably a little smiley emoji.
Yes.
But you know, Michael really worked his butt off over the break. And then all of our role players, you know, those guys, they really stepped up as well. And, you know, there was a collective belief. And, you know, we got down 3-1 against Utah, who's a great basketball team, coached by my college coach, Quinn Snyder. And they, you know, they're a disciplined, well-coached team. And they got up 3-1 on us. And I didn't know that's where the psychological aspect of being in the bubble, I knew our team was not going to go down quietly, but the psychological aspect of the bubble, I just didn't want to discount. And so when we got down 3-1, I wondered if we were going to I knew we'd fight, but, you know, if there came a point in time where it looked like we might lose, I wondered if our it's human nature. It is what it is. And especially when you're trapped in a situation like you are in the bubble, I think, there's not enough that gets talked about those guys being trapped in there. I mean, the right now the Lakers and the Heat, those guys have been in there since mid-July. And I mean, that's a long time. I mean, at least, you and I were chatting a minute ago. I mean, we at least get to go outside and walk around the block. Mm-hmm. But they see the same people every day, and I think it's kind of gotten even weirder and more eerie as a ghost town as teams exit the bubble.
For sure.
So I was really proud of our guys overcoming the mental aspect of the bubble, which is if I lose this game, I can go home. And our guys 6 straight times came back from 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, and then they won the first series. And then fast forward to the next round against the Clippers, and we had, after playing Game 7 against Utah, we had to play the Clippers 48 hours later. Wow. And that's and so Game 1, I said Game 1, we should sit all of our starters, because we should just write that game off and just start the series at 0-1. And we were able to come back, win Game 2, and then, or no, did we win Game 2 or we won Game 3, I think. Doesn't matter, but wound up down 3-1 again, and it's the same sort of thing. It's like, man. And then now you're dealing with a Clipper team that has 2 superstars on it, and a pick of many pundits to probably win the whole thing at one point in time.
Absolutely.
And so my dad and I went down there for Game 7. The Avalanche season was already over. We didn't want to go into the bubbles for a lot of reasons, but we couldn't make it to the hockey bubble. It was funny with the bubbles being up in Canada and the travel there. But for Game 7, we decided to go on down, and we went down. You had to have a test sent in that showed you were negative prior to even going down there. Then you had to take a rapid test upon landing. And then then you were quarantined in your hotel until you got your results, 30, 45 minutes later. And only then were you cleared into level 4 of the bubble, which was behind plexiglass, kind of over in the corner. A bunch of my friends saw me on TV, looked like I was in like a penalty box.
Was it surreal, Josh? Was it surreal, like being there in the bubble? I know it was like every movement's controlled, places you can go, access, things you have access to, things you can't do. You couldn't come in contact with the players, correct?
No, we could not. So after we won the game, Jamal and Nicola, Coach Malone knew we were there, and he pointed to a couple of our guys, and said they were waving, but we were way up over in the corner, and we were behind plexiglass, and it was very weird. I mean, and PR, you get this because you've been in a lot of gyms, but you go into a high school gym, and it's the squeak of the sneakers, it's the bounce of the ball, and it was more quiet in there than a high school gym. I mean, you have the fans that are there, but the fans are family, and they're kind of sitting in a socially distanced manner, near the court. There's only so much noise they can make. Right. But there's not really that group of people where you'd hear a roar or anything like that. We could hear the players chirping back and forth. And it was a very unique experience to witness a basketball game. Same thing with the Rams. I mean, we were talking about the game yesterday versus the Giants, and you can hear, I mean, I can't hear the snap count by any means, but you can hear the quarterback, you can hear coaches yelling as the play starts, you can hear, coaches yelling out, pass, run, I mean, it's a different environment being around these games without fans, because of the stuff that you hear, and you realize that the different chatter of what goes on in these different games that we're seeing.
Yeah, I tell people it's like what we as fans here at home watching on television is a very different experience than what the players themselves are experiencing inside the bubble, and it's like you take a player like LeBron that's been in the league 17 years, and it has to be an eerily different just scenario where now you're playing. I mean, look, I didn't play a high level of basketball, but there was always at least parents going crazy in the stands. Yeah. I can't, just the squeak of sneakers and just the silence and having to get pumped up for playoff basketball. It was definitely a different experience. And you being one game, you sensed that from the door, right?
No, for sure. That was the one thing I was most curious to see, because we're so used to having people around and the energy of what's supplied by a crowd, good or bad. some guys, I think, feed off of people yelling at them more than they
Yeah.
feed off of people cheering for them. But, you know, it's weird because, you know, and especially for our group, you know, our guys we're a younger team. A lot of our guys aren't married. And so it's not like their wives and kids were coming down. And then, you know, not only that, but you had like school starting. So our guys that did have kids, their wife was at school and stuff. And so there was real life issues kind of mixed in with this whole bubble experiment. And it was just a wild, and I hope somebody's going to, you know, document and tell the whole story of the bubble and the different experiences down there, because this is a moment in time that we'll all look back on and just kind of shake our heads and go, wow, you know, remember that time that, you know, LeBron James played against Jimmy Butler in the NBA Finals, and there was, you know, 10 people there watching. you know, I mean,
Absolutely.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Absolutely. I have told anyone that'll listen, and it's not because you're my very good friend. It's not because you're on my podcast. I have told anyone that'll listen in the last month that if I had my pick of organizations and rosters to pick from, it's you guys. I mean, you guys have such young talent with big game experience. You know, like the sky's the limit. Like, do you guys feel that excitement? On like, just you guys are like, in my opinion, ahead of schedule on like where you guys probably should be given the talent and the age.
Yeah, I think we're really excited about the group both now and headed into the future. You know, I'm always going to be the cautious optimist, but you know, I think that this group, it's taken a while to put it together. You know, Denver. You know, the benefit of being in a market like Los Angeles with the Rams and in London with Arsenal, you understand how you can build different teams across different markets. And being in Denver, we have to build our basketball team slightly differently than some other franchises might. And so this has been a slow build over time. And we've been very careful with how we've done it. We've definitely made mistakes, but you know, I think we've pivoted off those mistakes as quickly as possible. And we've wound up, you know, in a place where we've got some flexibility on our salary cap heading into this off season. We've got a great young team. Most of our guys are already under contract, or they're heading into free agency where we can, you know, hopefully work out a reasonable deal. While they haven't batted 1,000, they've done really well in the draft. And you and I have spoken about the draft a lot, and I think if you can hit on draft picks, you can wind up masking a lot of mistakes. And you know, when those opportunities arise, are you ready to pounce? And we had another, talking about Michael Porter, we had another one last year where I had actually already left and gone home we do the draft in kind of this back room at Pepsi Center in Denver. And it had gotten late, and it was already, you know, 10 picks into the second round. And I was like, all right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. And so I drove home, and like as I was driving home, Tim calls me, Tim Connolly, and he's like, hey man, he's like, no one's picked Bull yet. And I was like, really? I was like, where are we? And he's like, we're at like pick 35. And he's like, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but he's like, you know, is it cool if we use some cash to, like, you know, buy a pick if the opportunity comes up? And so I was like, yeah, you know, I was like, it's fine with me. I was like, let me double check with the big guy. So I told my dad about the opportunity, and you know, my dad, he follows all different sports as well. You know, we always have these little jokes where if an opportunity comes up, is if it's on the don't call me list, and just do it. The bull pick was on the, you know, don't call me, just do it, because we don't want to lose the deal. And just, you know, you take flyers on young men like that. And you know, with Michael and Bull, you know, those two guys they're very good young men on a personal level, and they both have a love for the game. And I think, you know, when you start with those two as kind of your foundation pieces, you can work through a lot of things. And with those two young men in particular, you had to sit them for a year almost because of the different injury concerns. And you know, being 19, 20 years old, that's the last thing that you want to do when you're that age. I didn't live that experience personally, I know what would have happened if I had something wrong with my foot or my back, and you'd had to kill me to kind of pull me off the court, because that's all you want to do. You want to hoop. And so you kind of got to keep the horse in the barn a little bit, and let them heal. And using modern medicine and rest, I think those two young men are in position to have a big impact on our team going forward. And that's outside of Jamal, Nicola, Will Barton wasn't in the bubble with us. Monty Morris did an unbelievable job. All of our role players and our guys, Paul Millsap being our veteran leader.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got a great bunch. They're no nonsense, and they believe in each other, and they believe in the group that they can beat teams. And so, while the rest of the NBA and the rest of the world might have been a little surprised by our guys doing what they did in the bubble, I think that our guys fully believe that that's something they're capable of, and they were upset when they got knocked out by the Lakers, even though everybody else was probably picking them to move along as well. And I think that even though you're going up against the best player in the world, our guys, they want to beat him, and they want to beat him very badly, and they respect the heck out of him. But if you're going to be the best, you got to try to beat the best. And I think that was probably the best part about what our guys got out of the bubble experience was they got two more 7-game series. They became the first team to ever come back 3-1 twice in the same postseason. And then they now have postseason experience against the best player in the world. And, LeBron is, I think they're up 2-1 right now. I watched part of the game last night. But going up against the best is only going to make you better. And I think that's what our guys really got out of this spring, was seeing what the best does, in the postseason when things are, the stakes are at their highest.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to you guys, man. It's like, having the pleasure and honor of spending so much time around LeBron. You hear him talk about best in class franchises, right? Mm-hmm. Across any sport. And, what you guys have been able to do with developing young talent, with telling young talent, hey, you know what? We don't need to win today. We're going to sit you. We're going to sit you, Michael Porter Jr., and you may be ready to play the back half of the season. Yeah. We're going to sit you. Hey, Bol, we're going to let you heal a little bit, these situations, and seeing how you guys have evolved. And for me, the culmination of it wasn't even beating the Clippers. It was obviously a huge accomplishment. In my opinion, as your friend, what defined what you guys have created as an organization with the Denver Nuggets was when you guys beat the Clippers in Game 7, and they're interviewing Jamal and Joker, and they're asking them about hey, how are you going to go up against the Lakers? They have LeBron and they have AD and they're this and they're that and they're this and they're that. And they respectfully were hey, they're a great team. We respect them, but they got to worry about us too. And I just thought it was such a prideful moment, as your friend, oh, look at the young guys. It's I just feel you guys have created a culture, with the Nuggets. That's, something I told you, when you guys lost, I sent you a text and I was man, you guys, congrats. You guys are ahead of the curve on this thing. So do you feel that? Do you feel that you guys have shifted the culture?
Yeah. And, I think that, and that's, to use your words and relate it back to something that I said kind of earlier, it starts with a feeling and a belief that you're heading in the right direction. It's probably been, 4 or 5 years on the Nugget side. It's been, I know, several years on the Avalanche side, but you feel that culture start to shift, and you believe that you're heading in the right direction, and that you have the right people in the right positions to help you succeed. You see the talent on the floor and the right personalities to complement each other, but also challenge each other kind of in a good way. And, we've seen that over the last several years, and it was cool to see them take the next step in the bubble. And relate it back to kind of what you talked about over at Arsenal. That's kind of the feeling that I have over at Arsenal right now as well. It was, a crazy 6 months, 8 months, 10 months now when we hired Mikel last December, Arteta. And then, the transfer window just ended today. I'm not sure when this will air, but, the transfer window just ended today. We signed a defensive midfielder from Atletico Madrid that's going to help us immensely. And it was a very, tactical need for our head coach and someone that was identified by our technical director. And so I'm really excited about the direction of that group because, like you said, it starts with a feeling. And even though culture is kind of gets cliched at times, it's a very real thing and something that I believe strongly in.
I love it. So before I get you out of here, I have 3 more things to you, quick hitters. These are we talked about the business. We handled Arsenal and Avalanche and the Nuggets and the Rams and the stadium. Now I'm selfishly talking about my passions. Right? Selfishly me. Screaming Eagle. Talk to me about like one of the things I respect so much about like Stan and you and your moms and just the family is like, you know, I've had the luxury of like vacationing with you. It's like, listen, a lot of people have money, not everyone has taste. I like to say it's like, you know, I will give, you know, your parents like the ultimate like props on like it's about taste, and I feel like everything you guys do is at a certain bar. Whether that's how you treat the people that work with and for you, whether that's the things you guys partake in, which is the ultimate compliment I can give you guys. It's like, you know, and I feel like Screaming Eagle's like one of the best examples of that, of like a best in class, you know, IP you guys don't. Talk to me about a little bit at a high level about Screaming Eagle, please.
Well, I mean, first of all, you know, this being several days after the fires in Napa, I got to send my best out to that entire region. We're involved with Meadowood Hotel in Napa, and a lot of that got burned. There were vineyards nearby that went, lots of obviously home structures, things of that nature. But Screaming Eagle was fortunately able to escape the fire directly. We'll see how the smoke in the region kind of affects the plants and everything and the grapes. But for the most part, I think, you know, no one was injured over at the Meadowood fire, and you know, as long as everybody's okay, things can be rebuilt. The wine business, I don't know. I mean, I finally asked my dad one time. I said, you know, you invest in things that really lead to a lot of different interesting conversations, and that people enjoy kind of either going to, talking about. And he kind of winked at me, and he's like, well, you know, it's not by design, but it's not by design. And so he invests, you know, in his interests. And where our family we're a real estate family that has kind of spun off into a lot of different things. That's kind of how I classify the sports business. Is, you know, we're the original Denver deal was a stadium, and you know, the stadiums was a real estate, and they happen to have some tenants as well that were for sale. And so the two teams, and then you know, now here we are with the Rams. That's a real estate deal out here in Los Angeles. But the wine business, that's an interesting one. And I could sit here and I could try to BS as much as I can about the wine business, but I'm big into consumption. I don't know if I'm big into education just yet. I'm working on it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, man. And the Screaming Eagle, I mean, it's unbelievable. I know you've tasted it before. And it really, you know, it's to me, it's the best wine in the world, even though everyone can debate it. From a Cabernet standpoint, I think it's the best wine in North America. You got to be very, very careful with a brand like that because of what it means to so many different people, you know, outside of the vineyard itself. But it's a very, very small piece of land in Napa Valley, and they just happen to have some of the best grapes around.
All I know is I don't know a ton about wine. I'm learning. Shout out to Mav. He's helped me.
You and me both. You and me both. Yeah, shout out to Mav.
Who's helped us with our wine knowledge. All I know is when
Mav's big into both education and consumption. So
yes, for sure. All I know is that when Mav and I go to your home in LA, the wine is plentiful and it is incredible. That's all I know. That's all I need to know.
Well, usually there's a game on, and if there's a game on, we got to have a glass of wine if we're going to sit around and talk about whatever's going on TV.
Absolutely. So I have two more from you. One is, yes. and again, I didn't prep you. I didn't send you any questions. We're just having conversation. I very rarely do any research, and I feel like a responsibility to like my listeners and viewers. I'm like, let me like at least Google some shit just to make sure I'm not missing anything.
This will be good.
And this may be a pivotal point in our friendship, Josh, what I'm about to ask you right now.
Oh,
yes, it's big. Yes,
Where
I'm playing that card. Does Kroenke Sports and Entertainment own a theme park?
Okay, so
how am I just finding out? Like this is going to be a really big thing.
No, okay, so it's actually it's a trick question and a trick answer.
Okay, talk to me.
But the answer it's a trick question with not really a trick question, not really a trick answer. But the answer is yes and no. But the answer is yes. And so we own there is a theme park in Denver, Colorado, Six Flags. And it is one of the last remaining and one of the few of it's that kind that is really built downtown and had the city grow around it. And so this is right next to Pepsi Center. And it's a contiguous piece of property that exists right next to Pepsi Center. And so the theme park we own the Six Flags in Denver. It's called
Elias
Gardens. Yeah, Six Flags.
Yeah,
Thank you, Elias Gardens. I just had a spacey moment for a second.
It's the Screaming Eagle. It's the Screaming Eagle.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's a staple of downtown Denver. It operates seasonally, I think, between probably summer months. But we're looking at highest and best use for the land, trying to figure out what the property is, and figuring out potentially a place to relocate the park around the city. That's more of a destination as opposed to highest and best use for land located so centrally in Denver. So back to real estate. Your answer is complicated. It's a yes. It's a no. It's this. It's that.
Hey, let me say this. I have never asked you for tickets to a Rams game, Nuggets game, Avalanche, Arsenal.
Hang on. Are you saying you want to cut the line?
I just want the easy pass or whatever it's called, man. I just want to be able to enjoy the rides, man. That's all I want. I don't ask for much. Can we make that happen at some point?
I might know a guy. Well, I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
That's all I ask. That's all I ask. I don't ask for much, man. But Josh, before I get you out of here, I think, as we've gone through like the journey of like,
I had no idea where that question was headed.
Oh, you did it. You got
Based
nervous.
on our adventures together, that question could have gone a lot of directions.
That is fair. My last thing for you, Josh, is given, we just walked through a little bit, like a very small portion of like Kroenke Sports and Entertainment and your growing role in it, and an amazing job Stan's done, and your mom, and that's a whole separate conversation, all the things she's into and things of that nature. I guess what I want to ask you is, like, for young executives that, have a lot of things going on, that aren't sure, which is going to be the thing that like takes off or whatnot. What's the best advice you can give? You don't have the luxury of focusing just on the Nuggets or just on Arsenal or just on the Avalanche. Any keys to success or anything you can impart, any wisdom you can impart, and just like how you're able to manage across different portfolios and just be successful at the highest levels?
This was something that I had to really work on because, to be frank, I think to learn different businesses, you have to kind of get in and get your feet wet, get your hands dirty, and you got to start digging. To kind of play out this metaphor, you got to start digging, and with your hands, your feet, everything that you can. And you have to get as deep as you can. But to get to where I am, which is what I would refer to as an inch deep and a mile wide, as opposed to, an inch wide and a mile deep. There was different lessons I had to learn along the way. And, the main one that I would tell anybody that's coming up in business at any age, what it is, and how they're applying themselves to whatever task is at hand. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. As, somebody that has grown up around real estate, has been around the sports business for a number of years now. A lot of times I think people just expect me to understand something, and I might understand it, but they might have a different terminology for some slightly different terminology, however it is. And so, don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you feel like it's something that you probably should know. And, as a young man coming up, especially in my early 30s, there were times where I was almost afraid to ask questions because I was like, oh man, should I know this? But it's like, flush it. To get on the same page with everybody, you gotta be on the same page with everybody. And that includes asking questions, even if you feel that they're not to say not appropriate, but don't be afraid of what you don't know. Always have your eyes and ears open. Sometimes there's people around that you think are good influences that may not be. And that exists, especially so in sports, because it's a very competitive environment. As much as we all support each other, we all want to win, and that plays out in a lot of different areas, obviously on the court. And then, I guess the last one that I would say is be confident in yourself. If you're able to put yourself in a position where you're going to have an opportunity, then you're smart enough to be able to put yourself to have an opportunity. And so trust your gut. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't bounce ideas off people, but trust your gut and know that what you're saying might not be the right answer, but you could be suggesting something that someone else might grasp onto and help build off that idea. And I've had those moments in time where it wasn't necessarily 100% my idea, but I had a suggestion where someone from a more senior position or veteran position was able to latch onto that and say, you know what, we can't do it that way, but boom, and then you're off and running. And so be confident in yourself, and just trust your gut. And, you know, at the end of the day, I always say to our players too, if you're not having fun, you're probably in the wrong business. And so, you know, trust your gut. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then find something else to do.
I love it. I said that was going to be the last thing. I kind of lied. I have one more thing I want to ask you. We started bringing it full circle.
Hopefully it's about when we're going to like skiing, snowboarding.
Oh, I need it. I need Aspen again. I need something.
I need to do something, man.
I need regular world stuff.
I'm missing it.
Let me ask you, we started this conversation with you saying when you started your career, you know, you jokingly said you were finding reasons not to be in the family business, right? Mm-hmm. I know for a fact we've had these conversations, how proud you are of your family business, how proud you are of what your dad has established, how much you still learn to this day from what, you know, your dad does. It's not something you run from. I guess two-part question. One is, you're a young exec, you're a very young exec. What do you want the Kroenke legacy to be, right, when it's all said and done? And what would you like Josh Kroenke's legacy to be when it's all said and done?
Ooh, man.
I know that's loaded, but
I've never been asked this question before. Wow. You know, I guess number one, from a KSE perspective, I want our legacy to be winning. I want our legacy to be winning and community impact. I think that, you know, these teams that I'm so fortunate to be involved with, really more so than, you know, as I joked to my dad when we were going through a couple of things the other day about, you know, Arsenal and the transfer stuff that was going on. And I got to pinch myself at some of the conversations that I wind up in, because as a kid growing up, as a sports nut, I was always a fan of these different things that I saw as I saw them going on around the world. And now I'm, you know, fully involved in the middle of them. The cool thing about these teams, these franchises, these clubs that we're in is that they're, at the end of the day, that people might say that, you know, my family owns the team, owns the club, owns the franchise. But really they're owned by the communities. And we just happen to be what I would say, you know, it's cliche, and I've been made fun of online by different fan bases for saying it, but it's the truth. I mean, we're custodians of these things, and you're trying to do the best job that you can, because you make so many people proud when you're really, you know, in the middle of these teams. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you're a fan. I mean, you want to be able to go to the water cooler on, you know, Monday morning and be able to brag to your buddy, and that's the type of pride that exists all around the world with these different teams. And so, you know, we want to win. I think that brings a certain amount of pride, but community involvement, because they become so ingrained in the local community, whether it's in London, here with the Rams in LA, or in Denver with the Nuggets, Avalanche. You know, we haven't talked about the Colorado Rapids in MLS, or our lacrosse team, the Colorado Mammoth, much, but those are all in the fabric of the community. And so to be out in the community and impacting people, going around, seeing kids, and visiting people, and bringing up people's spirits and their lives along the way, it's pretty cool, the power of sports, man. It's you know, my dad always said, use sports as a metaphor for life. And it's like teamwork, you know, sacrifice and hard work. And, you know, you put those strings and apply those things to a lot of areas of your life, and you can make something of yourself. You
know, it's been really inspiring to see the role sport has played. I know as two people that have committed their lives to sports, it's really dope to see like the role it's played in it. And I'm excited to see what else you guys do at KSC. You know, I'm excited to meet you at the amusement park, you know, hopefully next summer, if I'm being honest, you know, eat a little funnel cake or something. So
I'll have a funnel cake and a fast pass with your name on it.
Hey, I don't ask so much. Funnel cake and fast pass, I'm in.
All
you
right,
keep
man.
Floor seats,
this
all that stuff. That's all I ask.
See, most people ask for floor seats and a Screaming Eagle. I can get you a funnel cake and a fast pass. We're good.
Listen, I don't need 50-yard line, courtside, floor, Screaming Eagle, little funnel cake, little fast pass. That's all I ask.
Got it. Easy.
Josh Kroenke, man. Listen, brother, I appreciate you. I, more than anyone, know how extremely busy you are. I appreciate you giving me the time. And I look forward to seeing you in LA and us enjoying a drink in person, man. And meeting the new member to the family, wherever she is right now at the house.
She finally, well, here, I'll give you a quick one. She finally,
let me see where she's at.
She finally fell asleep.
She is. She feels how we all feel right now.
God exactly. She finally fell asleep.
Josh, I appreciate you, brother. I'll see you hopefully in person, and we'll enjoy a glass together. Like all times.
Right, man.
All right, brother.
Sounds good. Take care.
Peace.